quarters, the 47 county headquarters, have fire engines and firefighting equipment, as well as trained personnel to respond to fire disaster. However, that has not been cascaded to the sub-county level and ward level as required, and that is an area that we envisage to grow towards. Then to summarize with the question about the counties better prepared now than before, definitely yes, but our stage of preparation is still at infancy stage, because devolution is just about 9 years old, and some areas have been left behind extensively. The resemblance of infrastructure has just happened under the devolution resource that is allocated to these counties. And in terms of maybe personnel and capacity building, a lot has taken shape, and this is where the national government can play a lot of roles in terms of not only the counties mainstreaming, but in all aspects of our planning at the national level, at the county level, and other non-state actors. We need to mainstream the issues of climate change, because this is an absolute reality that is with us, and the effect is here with us. Until we have holistically mitigated through starting from family level to organizations, to every individual, to governments at all level and other players, and that is what I'll contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. I think the main message for me is that a lot is happening. We've done something as far as counties are concerned, but there's still a lot more to be done in terms of strengthening the capacity, more so going down to the sub-counties and even to the community level, and we can build on this going forward. I'm told that the video is ready, so maybe before I invite the next panelist, we can have the video. Frankie the dinosaur.
Uko sawa? Ama nikupe muda? Poa. Haya basi. Hebu sikilizeni. Nafahamu sana kuhusu kuangamizwa. Hili sio jambo bayana. Wacha niwaambie. Kuangamia sio jambo njema. Kisha mnajiangamiza wenyewe kwa miaka milioni 70 ni jambo la kustajabisha sana nilowahi kusikia. Angalau tulikuwa na vimondo. Kipi kisingizio chenu? Mnaelekea jangani sababu ya mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, lakini kila mwaka serikali zinatumia mabilioni ya fedha za umma kuruzuku vyanzo chafuzi vya nishati. Hebu tafakari kama tungetumia mabilioni kila mwaka kuruzuku vimondo. Hivyo ndivyo mnavyofanya. Fikirini ni mambo mangapi ya manufaa mnaweza kufanya kutumia hizo pesa. Watu wengi duniani wanaishi katika hali ya umaskini. Hamoni kwamba ingekuwa jambo la busara zaidi kuwasaidia wasiojiweza kuliko kulipia uangamizaji wenu? Wacheni niwaambie kinaga ubaga. Mnapopambana na janga la COVID-19, kuna fursa kubwa zaidi, haswa mnapoboresha uchumi wenu. Hii ni nafasi adimu kwenu. Wazo langu ni hili: msichague kujiangamiza. Jiokoeni, isije ikawa majuto. Huu ni wakati mwafaka. Wacheni visingizio, fanyeni mabadiliko. Asanteni.
Thank you. A clap for UNDP. Thank you. I'll move to the next speaker, Ambassador Kala. Ambassador, you do know that with the increasing climate-related disasters, we have impacts both on land but also underwater. And we do believe that having worked across different regions, different areas, you might have some experiences to share with us. But more importantly, I would like you also to focus on how we might strengthen our food systems, more so at the community level, because without food, I think we have a lot of problems, a lot of challenges. So, Madam Kala, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor, and good morning, fellow panelists and distinguished delegates. As it's really rightly said, and we heard it from yesterday, Kenya is number 31 in terms of vulnerability to climate change. And of course, the moderator in his introduction has already, of course, really gave the numbers, the intensity, and also the frequency of floods or of drought that we are really facing right now, particularly affecting the ASAL countries, where we have around 2.5 already millions of people facing food insecurity. And I should really add here also the increase of diseases, particularly on livestock. And also we see pests such as desert locust. In Kenya, we were affected by 2 invasions from 2019 to 2021, and this had not happened for almost 70 years. So what I could say is that what have we learned so far? The governor, and I couldn't really agree more, and yesterday also the resident coordinator has emphasized that resilience building is really the way forward. We have to strengthen capacity at local, at subnational, at the national level in order to sustain the shocks and crises. And let me add that really in order to effectively address those crises and disasters, there is a need for greater, I should say, investment in multi-hazard early warning systems that have the capability of providing the needed data that will allow really effective decision making. And I should also add that those systems have the potential to ensure that the early action is taken in advance, thereby avoiding really the catastrophic effects caused by disaster. It's not always easy, but the early action is important. Anticipatory action is not only easy to mobilize resources for that, but there are experiences, just to share that, for instance, in 2021, through the early warning system mechanisms, we learned already that the October, November, December rains will fail short. And this was already in addition to the, of course, failure of the rain in 2020. So you could really see the intensity and the impact of to the rural communities, particularly in terms of vulnerability and looking at women and children. And of course, working together, and of course, the UN umbrella with the government, with local communities, we were able to really anticipate action and mobilize resources that allowed, of course, to respond to the emergency. But as I indicated, that those are examples that should be really followed and taken up. It's not always easy to mobilize resources again for anticipatory action, but we know that it's cheaper and it saves lives and livelihoods. And of course, let me add that through the support of FAO in the context that I just presented, we were able to, of course, supporting the government to establish the Desert Locust Command Center that includes an information officer with the capability to provide data for early warning, preparedness, action, and response. So those systems are really crucial. The other point that I could add is on inadequate and sometimes non-existence policies, and this also coupled with the maybe lack of implementation. This is an issue that they also came very strongly yesterday. We do have policies, it's true, but maybe there I should say that policies are not static, they evolve, and sometimes we have to adequate them and improve them. But there are areas that we have to create new policies. For instance, I should say that Kenya didn't have a strategy for management of migratory and invasive pests when the desert locusts invaded the country. Of course, and this has created challenges in terms of effective and efficient response and also coordination. Coordination is key. We all heard what the governor said. Again, we supported, of course, the government to develop the strategy that is now in place. And of course, this will really allow, in order to respond. We were concerned when we heard that Mandera just 1 month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, was invaded by another swarm. And because we had learned the lessons from the 2 previous invasions, we quickly mobilized the scouters that with really technologies, they were able to do the surveillance and provide the information that will allow us to quickly respond. So, and this has been done involving the communities. And I should say here, young people that we really trained, the county involved, and also at the national level. Another issue that maybe I should also bring to this conversation is coordination. Coordination and cooperation, of course here local, subnational, and at the global level, is also key for disaster and risk management. International cooperation is key so that we ensure that the necessary global policies really are adopted and domesticated, and also resources are mobilized. One example that I want also to bring is that the development of the resilient programming framework that was spearheaded by the State Department of the South with the engagement and involvement of counties, and also the inaction of the disaster risk management bill by the Parliament are also very important interventions that should be supported. Maybe what I could say is that all this would really allow to act in advance, be coordinated, building that capacity that is needed so that we can really ensure food security and nutrition. Agriculture is affected deeply by climate change, and we see this. But it can also contribute to really mitigate and adapt to climate change. And communities, they have a very important role to play in this context. They should be involved. One thing that, of course, maybe the section that will follow will deal about climate finance What I see there, it's important that also the procedures are really simplified. And of course, we guide the communities in order to be able to access really those funds, so that, of course, the initiatives that are really emerging from the community level can be supported. Let me stop here. I could also bring, of course, we just had the Food System Summit in Kenya. This is a process that really involved at the community, at subnational, at the national level, and we saw the issues that were really coming from the conversation, issues such as nutrition. We know that it's still a challenging issue, particularly children under 5 years, also women, elderly, issues such as digitalization that are really key to transform agro-food systems, among others. So I should say that if we are able to address them and create the synergies that are needed, of course, integrate the policies at the national development plan so that we can also budget for it, this will really allow us to go one step further. So thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Kala, for that intervention. Key points there about the need to look forward, anticipatory actions, which you acknowledge that's very difficult to mobilize resources for, but can play a very critical role in terms of minimizing impacts, but also supporting livelihoods. And the other point you talk about is the need for multi-hazard sort of warning system for early action. So maybe I jump to the weatherman because Nicholas was supposed to talk about coming up with a robust early warning system that can help us ensure that we anticipate, we minimize losses on the economy, impacts on people, etc. So, Nicholas, from your experience and also as an institution, how do we move forward in terms of developing this comprehensive early warning system to help us deal proactively but also effectively with the challenges at hand?
Thank you very much, Moderator. Distinguished delegates, good morning. An early warning system are key for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, and aim to avoid or reduce the damage caused from hazards. To be effective, early warning systems need to be actively involve the people and community at risk for a range of hazards. We also need to facilitate public education and awareness of the risks. There is dissemination of the message and warning efficiently, and ensure that there is constant state of preparedness and that early action is enabled. The significance of an effective early warning system lies in the recognition of its benefit by the local people. Early warning systems for climate-related risks must rely on sound scientific and technical base, focus on people or sector mostly exposed to the risk. This implies the adoption of a system approach incorporating all relevant risk factors, whether arising from climate hazards or social variabilities, and these usually range from short-term to long-term. Example, what we are seeing now in the eastern part of the country is a long-term effect of the drought. Early warning systems include detection, analysis, prediction, and then warning dissemination, followed by response, decision-making, and implementation. To be effective and complete, an early warning system needs to comprise 4 interacting elements. That's the risk knowledge, monitoring and warning services. I think that's where the Kenya Meteorological Department falls. dissemination and communication, and response capability. Early warning systems are directly relevant to various sectors that are primarily affected by climate-related risks, reduction, health, agriculture, forestry, building, coastal, and urban areas. Coming to Kenya, in the Kenya Meteorological Department, we have two sets of warning. There is the set which we call the haddock or short-term hazards. These are where we have strong winds, heavy rains occurring in a short period. And we usually give a warning quite early. And this warning mainly, apart from the public, is directed to the various agencies, especially, for example, the National Operations Center, my colleague here from the National Drought Management Authority, and Kenya Red Cross. Then there's the other long-term warning, and this is usually when we give the season prediction, whereby, for example, the season for October-November rains, the forecast was given in September, and already the warning was that the eastern part of the country and the northern part of the country will have very short rains and rains below normal. And this is evident, as you can see here. We are in Makueni today. Unfortunately, it's November going towards December, and rains have not been seen. So that's a warning whereby at least the government and the county government needs to take action. When we talk of the climate outlook or the seasonal focus, what we do is we include all stakeholders, whereby agriculture, health, disaster management agencies, we give them the focus and they tell us what effects or what actions need to be taken. So, as Madam Ambassador has just said, the multilateral hazard early warning system is working in Kenya. Coming to the county level, in the county level, at least in each county, although Kenya Meteorological Department is not devolved, but in each county we have a meteorological person there who assists in at least giving the warnings. So all the national forecasts are downscaled to various counties and also to the level of sub-counties. And when it comes to the seasonal focus, again, they have some meetings whereby they call the public participatory scenario planning. This is where the various agencies meet with the weather forecast guys, and at least they plan what they expect to do at the county level. Apart from the agencies, we also have various groups of farmers, religious leaders, whereby at least they are our intermediary people who at least speak to the grassroots or the end farmer, or even if it's water harvesting and all that. So mainly, at least I can say we have tried to have a good early warning system which is involving all the other sectors.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think key message I take from you is the need to involve users, and you've tried as much as possible in terms of involving the sectors, but also ensuring that different users at the county level, even at the sub-county level, get the relevant information, especially the seasonal forecast, through such initiatives such as participatory scenario planning. And we can build on that going forward. So maybe I come to Walid from UNDP. Walid, we do appreciate and know that you engage a lot with governments, CSOs, and all others across the globe. And of course, listening from yesterday, you do appreciate that counties especially are at crossroads in terms of having to engage or having to deal with some of these emergencies. And they're likely to get worse going forward. So from your experience and also lessons from here and elsewhere, we do know that you've engaged more with the counties, and they are possible catalysts for action, actually. Apart from just being at the front line, they are also catalysts for action. What lessons can you share with the participants in terms of how that can be strengthened going forward to ensure that we deal with some of the challenges in a more sustainable manner?
Thank you, Victor, so much, and to my fellow panelists for excellent interventions. Absolutely. I think let me perhaps at the outset appreciate and recognize the Council of Governors, but also the national government and the Ministry of Devolution and all of the leadership that is here for, as I had said in an interview recently, Kenya having both the hindsight and the foresight to make the theme of the Devolution Conference around climate action. Because, Victor, as you've said and as everybody has said, disasters are highly contextual. They land in a very specific location that is vulnerable to a range of risks, and therefore the need to clearly map what those risk factors are, and to be able to then take the necessary disaster risk reduction measures, which I'll get into shortly, in responding to that. So it is very, very timely that the conference here taking place just on the heels of Glasgow really energizes action at the county level. I don't know if my picture is up on the slide. I hope it is, because I will be bringing a little bit of experience from elsewhere first, Victor. And before I came to Kenya, I served for 5.5 years in South Africa. Is the picture up?
Can we have the image projected as Walid speaks?
And in South Africa, we were implementing a disaster risk management, disaster risk reduction intervention, addressing the vulnerability to forest fires. And for some of you that may have followed, back in 2017, the southern coast of South Africa was ravaged by the worst fires that hit the country in history. And it affected 300 kilometers of the country on the southern coast, with hundreds of millions of dollars in damage to infrastructure, to lives and livelihoods, and of course, loss of lives. And what I wanted to show you through that picture, which I hope is being projected now, because a picture speaks volumes. A picture speaks more than 1,000 words, as the expression says. And what that picture shows is that with a very limited but strategic and responsive set of disaster risk reduction interventions, major catastrophes can be averted. So what that picture shows is the path of the fire that was ravaging that whole coast, that literally bypassed Kranchuk, which was one of 4 villages that we were supporting under this program through disaster risk reduction efforts. So this was early warning systems to ensure that the communities living in those villages are aware of weather patterns on specific days, and we've made that available through technology. But also that the cropping and the planting of certain vegetation is non-combustible and therefore able to resist that kind of forest fires, that hydrants, natural hydrants, are functional. And so very critical interventions that when disaster strikes, as inevitably it will, this can be averted. It was a fairly small investment of funding brought by the Global Environment Facility, but highly effective. And so my first message from that picture is that disaster risk reduction investment pays off. We never know when such a crisis will hit, and it is important that we be prepared. But let me perhaps summarize a few of the lessons that I would extract both from this South Africa experience, but more broadly. And I've summarized them into what I would say the 5 Ps. These are not the 5 Ps of the Sustainable Development Goals, but these are a different 5 Ps, but they do overlap somewhat. And the first P I would extract here is what I would say is power. And by power, I refer to the importance of leadership. And leadership is at the national level, and we see how, and through His Excellency the President's intervention yesterday, a very clear and strong commitment in Kenya at the highest levels of government to address climate change, but also disaster risk reduction, given how everybody has said Kenya is highly vulnerable to climate change. But that leadership is also at the county level. And Governor Roba, your intervention today exemplified exactly the policy action and the structures that you are putting in place in Mandera. But other governors, and we've heard from them also over the course of the last day and a half or so, also illustrating what they are doing. But leadership is not just political leadership. Leadership is all of us sitting in this room. And we all have a role to play to actually ensure that disaster risk reduction is prioritized and more investments start to flow. So whether you're the media and the Fourth Estate covering this event and how much you have an amplification force on getting messages out, you have a role to play to actually look at how resilience spending and resilience investment is happening. Research institutions and academia bringing in the knowledge and the science to bear and bringing it to the attention of policymakers so that they can actually make informed decisions. Financing institutions, whether they're international development banks, donors, bilateral, the private sector, you have a critical role to play to make those decisions to make sure that the funding goes to avert possible risks in the future. So the first P really is around that political leadership required. And this has to be an enlightened, accountable, visionary leadership. We know how political cycles are. They're 5 years, and you run for re-election if we're talking about the political leadership. So when you have to make an investment as a sitting governor on whether you're going to put money for resilience or you're going to put something that sustains the next political cycle is, to me, a very critical measure of that enlightened leadership, because those good leaders are the ones that will make those investments that maybe even in their political cycle they don't have the opportunity to harvest. But it is the right decision. The second P that I would refer to is policies. And that is the whole enabling environment and space within which disaster risk reduction lies. And I think we've heard and seen how robust that policy framework is in Kenya, both at the national level, but also at the county levels. But it is, as Governor Roba said, it's still in its infancy. And therefore, the sustained support to build on that policy framework that exists, whether it's the ending drought emergency, and we'll hear, of course, from Mr. Odor there in a short while about the substantial investment that Kenya has made around drought. But there are other risks in Kenya as well. We're seeing the rising lakes, and we're seeing the desert locusts and many others. COVID-19, even though that may not be a direct climate-related risk, but the issue is that multi-hazard risk mapping is so crucial. The I also want to commend Kenya for the disaster risk management bill that is currently being tabled for enactment, and that would be a highly important framework, a legal framework at the national but also with implications at the subnational level to ensure that the country has a much more robust governance structure and framework to respond to disaster risks. As UNDP, we've been supporting, of course, at the national and the county level, the capacity and the development of so many of these disaster risk management policies and plans under our joint devolution program, but with many, many others. And also in terms of the early warning systems that were just spoken about, this has to influence and inform the policies that are context-specific. The Secretary General, on the occasion of the International Disaster Risk Reduction Day on the 13th of October, made a very clear statement that if 24 hours of early warning is provided, 30% of the damage that is likely to occur can be reduced significantly. And this speaks to the picture which I think is now before you. The green oasis is, as you can tell, Kranchuk, that is the village where the project was active, and the area around it is of course ravaged by the fires, and you can see how that trajectory of the fire entirely bypassed the village. So it's not a hypothetical, this is a very real reality. Let me come to the third P, and that is partnerships. And everybody yesterday has spoken about the need to have these partnerships at global, regional, country, county levels to ensure that climate action is responded to effectively. Glasgow was effectively around partnerships. And I think this is something that I can only reinforce. Kenya has done relatively well in being able to attract international finance for climate change in Africa, but it doesn't come near the $62 billion figure that we've heard from President Kenyatta yesterday to implement the nationally determined contribution of Kenya and to reach that 32% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, but also, of course, on the adaptation side. And here, when we talk about disaster risk management, we are talking about investments in adaptation and adaptation capacity. But there are so many global international financing sources that are available, the Green Climate Fund, the Adaptation Fund, the Global Environment Facility, and many, many others, that Kenya is being readied with support of many of the international and development partners here, including UNDP, to actually more readily tap into those. A lot was mentioned about afforestation and reforestation. Through the RED Plus program that UNDP is implementing with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we are readying the country to be able to tap into much larger financing for reforestation efforts. To help meet the 10% tree cover goal by next year, we've put in place a multi-partner trust fund, and CS Tobiko yesterday spoke about that, and we hope to mobilize the kind of resources to allow the acceleration between now and next year to meet that very, very ambitious goal. So partnerships and finance are critical, but what I would say here is that relying on international financing sources is never going to be enough. This has to be cascaded down and budgeted for in national and county governments. And that's why this conference is so critical, to get that political commitment so that coming out of Makueni here, we can actually start to see the budgets for resilience building actually start to show pictures like that from Kenya. The fourth P is programs. And here I think we need to be looking at a new generation of programming that actually looks at the humanitarian development and peace nexus, not as silos of interventions, but as interconnected ones that design programs that simultaneously address the humanitarian risks that we face as a country, but also put that in a development context, and at the same time will contribute to peace. Now, this is, for example, we can look at programs that bring young people into the agroforestry value chain to plant trees and grow trees and create sustainable businesses, and at the same time take them from the risk of radicalization and other negative influences that we've heard also yesterday being spoken about. So designing programs that actually have the win-win-win and the triple nexus in mind is such a critical one, but also looking at addressing the most vulnerable. And we've heard a lot yesterday, the resident coordinator of the UN spoke about the vulnerability of women, particularly to climate change. And so how do we ensure that the leave no one behind analysis of what the country team has done here in Kenya is actually factored into that programming. And there are a host of projects and programs that I can refer to that we have been implementing very successfully that actually create that nexus. The fifth and final P is really to pray. Because we can never anticipate when that next disaster comes, and so I think we do have to pray that that doesn't hit us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think a lot, and you've explained a lot in details. I want to try to recap. The key thing is that disaster risk management pays off, and we need to look at the 5 Ps. So this now takes me to the CEO.
Msodata kabisa mtazamaji, ni kongamano la 7 la ugatuzi ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa katika kaunti ya Makueni, ambapo maswala kadha wa kadha yameibuka kuhusiana na kongamano hili. Kumbuka kongamano hili lilizunduliwa hiyo jana na Rais Uhuru Kenyatta pamoja na kinara wa ODM Raila Amolo Odinga. Waziri wa masuala ya ndani Daktari Fred Matiang'i pia vilevile alikuwa yupo katika hafla hiyo ambayo inaendelea kwa sasa katika kaunti ya Makueni. Kumbuka kauli mbiu ya kongamano hili la ugatuzi la 7 ni kuweza kushirikisha serikali za ugatuzi katika kudhibiti athari za mabadiliko ya tabia nchi, na kuna masuala kadha ambayo yameibuka katika mjadala ambao unaendelea kwa sasa katika kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea katika shule ya upili ya Makueni, na ambapo usisahau kwamba mojawapo ya ajenda ambayo imeibuka ni kuhusiana na jinsi gani taasisi za utafiti zitaweza kushirikishwa katika kuhakikisha kwamba ugatuzi inakabiliana na swala la mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Na kando na hayo, usisahau kwamba kaunti tofauti imekuwa ikikumbwa na swala la ukame katika maeneo mbalimbali humu nchini na baa la njaa ambayo imezidi kuathiri wakazi katika maeneo tofauti humu nchini. Ni mojawapo tu ya ajenda ambayo kwa sasa imesheheni katika mjadala ambao unaendelea kwa sasa katika kaunti ya Makueni. Kumbuka hili ni kongamano la ugatuzi la mwisho ambalo litakuwa linafanyika siku ya leo katika kaunti ya Makueni, na picha ambazo natazama kwa sasa ni za moja kwa moja kutoka kaunti ya Makueni, ambapo wajumbe 3,000 wanahudhuria kongamano hili ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa. Viongozi mbalimbali ikiwemo waziri wa masuala ya ndani Daktari Fred Matiang'i hiyo jana pamoja na Rais Uhuru Kenyatta na kinara wa ODM Raila Odinga waliweza kuzindua kongamano hili, na ambalo kongamano lenyewe linatarajiwa kukamilika hiyo kesho. Usisahau kwamba naibu Rais William Ruto pia vilevile atakuwa anahudhuria kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa katika kaunti ya Makueni. Ni wajumbe 3,000 tu ambao waliruhusiwa kufika katika kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea. Masuala kadha wa kadha yakiibuka ni jinsi gani serikali za ugatuzi zitaweza kudhibiti athari za mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Na akifungua kongamano hilo kwa njia ya mtandao, Rais Uhuru Kenyatta alisisitiza kwamba kuna haja ya serikali za kaunti kuendeleza kubuni sera zitakazolinda mazingira kwa faida ya kizazi cha sasa na maisha ya vizazi vijavyo. Ni kongamano ambalo linaendelea na la 7 na ni kongamano la mwisho katika mwaka wa 2021, na kuna masuala kadha wa kadha ambayo yameibuka katika serikali za kaunti, na ni swala ambalo kwa sasa linatupiwa jicho huku mjadala uking'oa nanga mwendo wa saa 3:30 hivi za asubuhi, na ambapo wajumbe kutoka maeneo mbalimbali humu nchini wapo katika kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa kutoka mashirika tofauti tofauti. Kumbuka swala la ugatuzi limekuwa chanya kabisa katika serikali ya sasa, na imeweza kuibua masuala chungu nzima, na vile vile kumekuwa kukushuhudiwa masuala kadha wa kadha katika bunge la kitaifa na bunge la seneti, ni jinsi gani serikali za kaunti zitaweza kuwa na manufaa zaidi kwa serikali kuu. Ni kongamano ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa katika kaunti ya Makueni, na tutakupasha mengi zaidi, tutakuwa tunazidi kufuatilia kwa undani zaidi tukujuze kuhusiana na kongamano hilo na yale ambayo yatakuwa yanajadiliwa. Lakini kwa sasa, mtazamaji, wacha tukufahamishe tu baadhi ya taarifa ambazo tumekuandalia katika chumba chetu cha habari. Kwanza kabisa, mlinzi wa shule ya msingi ya Makueni katika kaunti ya Busia ameuawa na watu wanaoshukiwa kuwa majambazi usiku wa kuamkia leo, huku washukiwa hao wakitoweka na vifaa vya kielektroniki kutoka kwa afisi ya mwalimu mkuu. Washukiwa hao waliiba tarakilishi na vitabu vya wanafunzi katika shule hiyo. Aidha, wakazi wa eneo hilo wamelalama kuhusu ongezeko katika visa hivi, huku wakitoa wito kwa serikali kuingilia kati na kuhakikisha usalama umeimarishwa katika eneo hilo.
Asubuhi tumepata habari kwamba mzee Bamba ameweza kuchinjwa na kuuawa katika shule ya Makueni. Hii jambo tumelipata kwa huzuni, na wakazi wa hapa Busia tumekasirika sana. Na watu ni wanyama, watu sahi wamekuwa wanyama, watu wanaingia katika kwa shule kama huyu mzee wanamchinja tu vile wamemchinja namna hiyo. Hatujafurahia hilo jambo. Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali, tunataka ulinzi wa kutosha, tupate ulinzi ili watu wetu tuwe na uhuru wa kufanya kazi na tuwe na uhuru wa kuishi.
Walivunja ofisi, wakaiba laptop 2, 1 gas cylinder, projector 2 na vitabu vya wanafunzi. Sasa huyu watchman alikuwa anangoja hii shule na wakamuua na mawe, walipiga yeye mawe wakamuumiza. Kwa hivyo mimi naomba watu wa Makueni ya Ngoromo location tuungane pamoja, tuone ya kwamba tunatambua hii watu ambao wanaweza kuua watu wadogo kama hawa, watu wenye hawana hatia, na mtu wa mbali hawezi toka akakuja kaiba mali hapa. Ni vijana ya hapa na ni watu ya hapa, ambapo tunataka serikali ichukue jukumu, mimi nikikuwa ndani yake, tuone ya kwamba hii watu tunawatambua na tuone ya kwamba wanaweza kuchukuliwa hatua kali vile inawezekana.
Na tukiachana na hayo, mtazamaji, kwingineko ni kwamba chama cha Green Party kimezindua kampeni inayolenga kuhamasisha watu wanaoishi na ulemavu kuwania viti mbalimbali katika uchaguzi wa mwaka 2022. Akizungumza wakati wa uzinduzi wa hafla hiyo, Martin Ogindo amewapa motisha watu wenye ulemavu ili wawakilishwe vyema katika uongozi wa taifa mwaka ujao. Aidha, amedokeza kwamba chama hicho kimepunguza fedha za kuwania mchujo kwa watu wenye ulemavu wanaotaka kuwania viti mbalimbali.
That despite the fact that we have provisions creating space for persons with disability, despite the fact that the Constitution of Kenya has created space for persons with disability to thrive, has given them rights, this has not been actualized due to systemic marginalization. And we are stepping forward as a party to do 2 things. 1, to give persons with disability a clear space in our party so that they can thrive as members of the party and as members of this beloved country, Kenya. Number 2, we are also creating a platform for the people with disability where they can pursue their political goals as leaders at the county level and as leaders at the national level.
Today, I am very much delighted for this event. Today, we have officially launched the Disability League at GCK, Green Congress Party of Kenya, where I belong. And I joined this party because of the ideology of the Green Congress. Because all of us need a clean environment to live in. All of us need to move in a very systematic manner of green economy.
Kwingineko mtazamaji, ni kwamba wakazi wa Lamu sasa wanaitaka serikali kuhakikisha chanjo ya corona inafika walipo, wakisema kuwa hakuna hospitali inayotoa chanjo hiyo kaunti ya Lamu. Aidha, wakazi wamelazimika kutembelea zaidi ya kilomita 100 kutafuta chanjo ya corona. Yanajiri huku serikali ikisema kuwa haitatoa huduma kwa Wakenya ambao hawajapokea chanjo hiyo.
Eneo ya Boni mpaka saa hii haijafika hii chanjo ya COVID-19. Mimi nahimiza serikali iweze kutufikiria ili watuletee kule, kwa sababu madaktari hakuna kule. Mahospitali hazifanyi kazi.
Hayo yanajiri kufuatia tangazo la Waziri wa Afya Mutahi Kagwe kuwa Wakenya wanapaswa kupata chanjo kabla ya tarehe 21 mwezi wa Disemba.
Everybody seeking in-person government services should be fully vaccinated and proof of vaccination availed by December 21st, 2021.
Mbunge wa Kabuchai, Majimbo Kasalinga, ameikashifu serikali akisema kamwe hilo halitawezekana.
Say that you cannot enter my office because you have not been vaccinated. Who said vaccination is a law? Who said? There are things, we are people, kuna watu wenye wako na shida na shindano. Unaweza dunga shindano na mtu ana react na shindano. Kuna those wamewacha kudungwa because wako na reactions. If you wish that everybody should be vaccinated, first of all, come to the ground with the vaccination, closer to the people. One does not have money to buy unga. You want him to spend 200 shillings from home to the hospital.
Ni Wakenya milioni 2.6 pekee waliochanjwa kikamilifu, huku dozi milioni 6.5 ikiwa tayari imetumika. Hatua ya serikali kwa shinikiza Wakenya kupokea chanjo ili waweze kupokea huduma za serikali inaonekana kama njia moja ya kuwalazimu Wakenya kupokea chanjo ya corona. Iwapo serikali itafaulu katika mpango huo ni swala la kusubiriwa. Tayari serikali imeidhinisha chanjo kwa watoto walio na miaka 15 na zaidi, huku chanjo ya corona aina ya Pfizer ikitengezwa kwa shughuli hiyo. Tukiachana na hayo mtazamaji, kwingineko ni kwamba makundi mbalimbali katika kaunti ya Migori yamepata mafunzo ya jinsi ya kujiendeleza kwa kutumia mbinu mbalimbali za kilimo. Mratibu wa mradi wa The Send Akau Bibi Tizwere amesema mpango huo utawafaa wakulima na mbinu za kilimo za kisasa. Na waziri wa kilimo katika kaunti ya Migori Elijah Gambere amewataka wakazi kutumia fursa hiyo ili kujifaidi na kuwa na chakula cha kutosha.
And during field day, we are promoting the technologies that we use that we want farmers to adopt in doing production. And some of them we are producing vegetable, banana, and we really encourage farmers to produce more food that they can eat and also surplus to sell so that they increase household income. So like today, we work with groups directly, but our intention is to bring more people, more population. For example, in West Kanyamkago, we want to reach out to the rest of population within West Kanyamkago. So during field day, it's an opportunity to transfer knowledge to the rest of the community so that they can learn and go and practice on their farm.
Hao trainers wetu na maofisas wetu na mashirika mbalimbali wamekuja na mambo mazuri sana, jinsi ya kujimarisha na kuongeza mazao, mapato juu ya nyumba zetu ili tukaweza kuimarisha maisha yetu. Si hiyo ni vizuri? Hiyo ni vizuri kwamba tuongeze mazao, tuongeze mapato na tuimarishe maisha yetu. Hilo ni jambo la muhimu sana. Na wanasema kwamba knowledge is power. Wakati ambao tumepatiwa mafundisho haya yanatubadilisha. Na nashukuru kwamba mafundisho ambayo tunapatiwa ni ile ambayo tunaita holistic. Inaitwa namna gani? Kamilifu. Yaani mafundisho ambayo yanatacha nyanja mbalimbali. Kwa mfano, mafundisho ambayo yanatuelimisha, mafundisho ambayo yanatusaidia tupate mapato ambayo tunaita economic empowerment.
Kwa sababu ya elimu yenye tulipata na vile tumefanya kazi upande wa afya, tumeshukuru sana kwa sababu wengi wetu wamepata chanjo siku ya leo na tumeshukuru sana. Viongozi wetu kwa kazi ambao wametuletea, wametufundisha, tumepata elimu.
Tukiachana na hayo mtazamaji, kwingineko ni kwamba washikadau katika sekta ya umma wameandaa mkutano kujadili changamoto zinazoathiri sekta ya umma, huku vigezo muhimu vikiangaziwa ikiwemo maslahi ya wafanyakazi na changamoto za kiuchumi kwa jamii, miongoni mwa masuala mengine. Mwanahabari wetu Patronila Goren na maelezo zaidi.
Akizungumza wakati wa ufunguzi rasmi wa kongamano hilo, katibu mratibu wa utumishi wa umma na jinsia Beatrice Elachi amesisitiza kwamba kuna haja ya kukumbatia teknolojia mpya na kutekeleza uwazi na uwajibikaji katika sekta ya umma.
It is important to note that the ministry is working with other stakeholders and the private sector in particular to develop the institutionalized mechanisms that develop and sustain an alert work culture capable of innovating, foreseeing, and preventing any drastic, rapid, or gradual negative change that will pose the threat to the country's human resources in future.
Hapo awali tulikuwa tunashughulikia uwezo wa mtumishi wa serikali binafsi kutoa huduma kwa wananchi, lakini sasa lazima tuanze kushughulikia uwezo wa mtandao.
Aidha, Elachi amependekeza wafanyikazi wa kaunti na wale wa kitaifa kufanya kazi pamoja ili kudumisha amani na kuongeza ufanisi katika sekta ya umma.
Jambo la muhimu tunasema na tunaomba sana hata seneti ianze kuangalia kwamba sheria iangaliwe ili tusaidie Wakenya. Wewe ukiwa Mkenya unafanya kazi Kilifi, unaweza enda kufanya kazi Nyeri, unaweza enda kufanya kazi Marsabit, na yule wa Marsabit yuweza kuja Kilifi ama popote, ili wewe ujue ya kwamba unapofanya kazi unafanyia Wakenya.
Hata hivyo, wataalamu wameangazia baadhi ya changamoto yakiwemo masuala ya afya ya akili, utumizi wa dawa za kulevya na athari za janga la corona katika sekta ya umma. Wataalamu wanasema wanatafuta suluhu ya kudumu ili kuepuka matatizo kama hayo siku za usoni.
There are also challenges, ladies and gentlemen, in the environment that are affecting the mental health of public servants. They are also as much exposed to challenges like drugs and substance abuse, and which are affecting their mental steadfastness and therefore their effectiveness. And we have to find ways of dealing with this, short of saying we sack them.
Hata hivyo, washikadau hawa wamesema ipo haja kwa serikali kuajiri wataalamu na kukumbatia maadili mema ya uongozi ili kuimarisha sekta ya utumishi wa umma. Patronila Goren, Runinga TV 47, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Tukitoka huko mtazamaji, kwingineko ni kwamba Wizara ya Elimu imebuni sera itakayoimarisha na kuboresha masomo ya watoto wanaoishi na ulemavu nchini. Mwanahabari wetu Elizabeth Atieno na uketo wa taarifa hii.
Kongamano hili la siku mbili lilifunguliwa rasmi na katibu mkuu wa utekelezaji wa mageuzi ya mtaala wa elimu Fatma Shege, aliyesema kuwa Wizara ya Elimu imebuni jopo maalum litakaloangazia utekelezaji wa mtaala mpya wa elimu CBC.
I also note with satisfaction that KISE is a member of the Multi-Agency Technical Committee for Implementation of Curriculum Reforms. It has also established an institutional working group on curriculum reforms. This is a commendable move to ensure that the reforms are at the center of all activities of KISE.
Aidha, Shege na mwenyekiti wa tume ya elimu ya vyuo vikuu nchini Chacha Nyagoti wameirai taasisi ya elimu inayoangazia watoto wanaoishi na ulemavu kuhakikisha mtaala wa CBC unatekelezwa kikamilifu.
It has also established an institutional working group on curriculum reforms. This is a commendable move to ensure that the reforms are at the center of all activities of KISE.
Learners can still achieve the highest level of education without necessarily condemning them to the old systemic arrangement where we would have an exam that determines you as a failure and me as somebody who has passed.
Aidha, Wizara ya Elimu imebuni sera zitakazohakikisha wanafunzi wanaoishi na ulemavu nchini wananufaika na masomo ya CBC.
This commitment is further expressed by the fact that the Ministry of Education has put in place a policy on special needs and inclusive education and training together with its implementation guidelines. The policy documents address education provision for learners with special needs and disability.
Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Na mtazamaji, tukiachana na taarifa hiyo ya Elizabeth Atieno, kwa sasa nitakurejesha hadi katika kaunti ya Makueni ambapo kongamano la 7 na la mwisho la ugatuzi linaendelea kwa sasa. Masuala chanya kabisa yakiibuka katika kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea. Kumbuka kongamano la 7 la ugatuzi, kauli mbiu ya kongamano hili ni kwamba ni jinsi gani serikali za ugatuzi zitashirikishwa katika kudhibiti athari za mabadiliko ya tabia nchi. Na kumbuka kwamba Rais Uhuru Kenyatta akifungua kongamano hilo kwa njia ya mtandao alisitiza kuwa pana haja ya serikali za kaunti kuendelea kubuni sera zitakazolinda mazingira kwa faida ya kizazi cha sasa na maisha ya vizazi vijavyo. Kwa sasa mtazamaji, nitakuvusha moja kwa moja hadi katika kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea kwa sasa. Kumbuka ni wajumbe 3,000 ambao wameruhusiwa kuhudhuria kongamano hilo ambalo linaendelea, huku ya viongozi kutoka mashirika tofauti tofauti wakifika na kujadili masuala chanya, ni jinsi gani taasisi za utafiti zitawezwa kushirikishwa ili kuweza kubuni mikakati ambayo itahakikisha kwamba inapiga jeki serikali za kaunti katika jitihada za kulinda mazingira. Picha hizi ambazo natazama kwa sasa ni za moja kwa moja kutoka katika kaunti ya Makueni ambapo kongamano la 7 la ugatuzi linaendelea, wajumbe kadha wa kadha wakifika katika kongamano hilo. Na kumbuka kongamano hilo litakuwa linatarajiwa kukamilika hiyo kesho, huku naibu Rais William Ruto akitarajiwa kuhudhuria. Kwa sasa wacha nikuvushe moja kwa moja hadi katika kaunti ya Makueni, katika shule ya upili ya Makueni, ya upili ya vulana ya Makueni ambapo kongamano hilo linaendelea.
Government institutions that are tasked with the role of ensuring inclusivity and ensuring that we put our sustainable development goals as our compass when we are addressing issues of climate action. So my question is, what are we doing to ensure that our climate action are more inclusive and ensure that women, youth, and persons with disabilities are included, to ensure that we do not leave anyone behind? I know a lot of efforts have gone through ensuring that, for example, women have access to green energy. But if you look at the country, especially right now, this happened last year and also this year, the prices of fuel have increased. And this, what does this mean to a common woman, or what does this mean to a common young girl in the village? It means that when the price of fuel increase, all of them will go back to using fuel, firewood, and this increases their vulnerability to climate change. So what are we doing? What measures are we having in place to ensure that our response are more inclusive, ensures that we do not leave anyone behind? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll invite the CEO of NDMA, who I think a number of questions were there.
Hello, you had given me the chance. It's just that her hand had also been up.
Let's hear from the panelist before I come to... Okay, let me hear from the governor as well. In the spirit of fairness, go ahead please, and then I come to the governor, then...
Okay, thank you. My name is Ben Sihanya, chair of KIPRA board and a lecturer at the University of Nairobi Law School. Briefly, the debate on drought is quite important and related risks, but in Kenya for a long time, it has been known that drought has been occurring fairly regularly, and that many times it follows a few months after floods. So these have been generally predictable, but it's clear that serious measures and sustainable measures in the long term have not been taken. In fact, climate change has even just made it worse. There have been so many droughts and so many floods in the past. So my main comment is that I think there is need for coordinated policy dialogue, both at the national level and also among the counties. And so that intergovernmental approach is very, very important. Within the larger framework of disaster management, disaster preparedness, and response to disasters. So I think the main issue here is about revised, renewed, re-energized policy dialogue that would then lead to legislation, and that we always insist that policy consensus should precede legislation. In many cases, we rush to legislate and we can't easily implement because they were not clearly thought out. So policy dialogue, legislation, and then related action. Lastly, KIPRA has done quite a lot of work, and there's a lot of papers on these issues of drought, these issues of flooding, most of them actually in the booth in the exhibition hall, and most of them are also online. In fact, some of the work also deal with issues, as the executive director has just mentioned to me, that they also deal with questions of insurance, and an issue which was mentioned earlier. Insurance to protect households, to protect various affected people. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, moderator. I'm speaking as a governor from an area that usually suffers from drought and hunger. And I've got 4 points in a very chap-chap manner. Point number one, and I've listened to the European Union, UNDP, I've listened to my friend, the lawyer, KIPRA, and others talking. I like the presentation presented by the National Disaster Team. My experience when I was government spokesperson is that hunger is an issue of lack of money. Hunger is a problem of poverty. So it's not just about the rains did not come. It's also because we are a poor economy. So it's also about building the economy base. Because there are countries that receive less rainfall than our region, like you go to Jordan, Israel, others. They're not looking for food relief. There are nations that receive areas in Australia that hardly receive any rainfall. They are not being fed every time because they have all those buffers. You go to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, others. So it's an issue of money. So it's an issue of poverty. The people who are starving are the poor. The people in Nairobi who live in apartments don't grow their sukuma wiki, but they have money to go to the shop and buy sukuma wiki. So it's all about also the money. So the idea of money being taken to places is very good. The second point is about logistics. We're in a time when people are starving here in areas of Ukambani, in areas of Turkana, Samburu, and at the same time in the Rift Valley they were pouring milk and throwing away cabbages. They were rotting. Logistics, just to get the food from one corner of the country to another corner of the country. So that's a big problem also that I hope you are addressing in terms of getting the food across. The third point which is tied into that is that we need to think in terms of long term. And this is where now the international organizations, the governments come in. And this idea of let's stock our own food. Let's have enough silos all over so we can stock food to last us 3 years whether it rains or does not rain. We need to have good silos. We need to have good strategy and use technology for storage, store canned meats, freeze vegetables, so that whenever there's a shortage of food, food is released from the stocks to the market. And so we don't, we are 3 years ahead of what is happening. And lastly is an experiment which I'd like to share. The former president of Malawi tried this experiment when Malawi was suffering of a subsidy program, whereby he decided to operate the issue of hunger and food shortage as if it was a business, so about the bottom line. And so he bought tractors, and he was able to increase the amount of land being cultivated, seeds and everything. And when I became governor of Machakos, we were constantly being fed every time there was shortage of rainfall. I adopted the Malawian experience. I copied what they did and adopted it to Machakos, where I bought tractors for every ward to increase 1 acre to 3 acres for farmers, so that if you're getting 10 bags on a bumper harvest, now you'll be getting 30 bags, so that when the rains fail and you've got 3 acres, now you get 10 bags, so you don't starve. So you have money to go and sell. Do you sell your products and have money? We gave free seeds to most of our farmers, gave chickens to our women, dug myriad of boreholes and water pans and everything. And as a result of those initiatives, I'm proud to say that my people of Machakos are not in the list of food relief because of initiatives that we were able to put. So just being ahead of the drought. And it is possible through devolution for us to achieve that, because let me tell you one thing, it's a shame to be fed. It's a shame for you to be brought food. And we shouldn't have pictures of Kenyans starving at a day and age of so many years after independence. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. So I'll invite the panelists, starting with James, and then you just pass the mic to the next. Also, respond to any other question, your last comments.
Thank you very much, Victor. Actually, there were 6 issues. I think 2 are comments, 4 are questions, and when I look at them, I think the ones that concern me directly are 2, but if the others, I'll be ready also to respond. The first one is also on the insurance issue that was mentioned by Dr. Steve. In this disaster risk financing strategy, insurance is recognized as a way of buying the premiums, and when time comes, you get payout to respond. We have some small insurance schemes going on, like Kenya Livestock Insurance Program. We are also members of the Africa Risk Capacity, the AU facility. We paid twice, but we also stopped paying. We have negotiations with the National Treasury to start paying again, because what happened that time was...
Epuka giza sasa na mshuma. Entrepreneurs around the country are creatively grinding.
I started with a borrowed phone.
A borrowed phone?
Yeah, that could last 2 hours with charge.
We just have to do quality work for them.
To make their mark in an unpredictable market.
It was now going on a sales venture, looking for stockists door to door.
On the grind, we bring you their stories so you can tell yours. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Men are known to be the pillars.
We're rising up together.
Say your point.
You need an alpha male now to come and help you and your girl.
Ameongea zero.
And women, they are the cornerstone that hold the pillars.
Don't be entitled. A man is peaceful, a man knows how to talk to a lady.
This November, the Men's Conference brings a cocktail of diverse ladies to weigh in on various matters.
Something I'd love more to see is men being able to exist as themselves.
Tune in every Wednesday at 10 p.m.
Hello guys, and welcome to Night In with Joy Irungu. Joy Irungu.
Heartbreak, pain, and tears have been a major part of Night In Season 1. We thank you for being with us on this journey, and for this upcoming season, we will bring you more empowering stories that not everyone is talking about.
This is the only show where we keep it authentic. We share our lifetime experiences, and you know what? Tell every person that you can turn your pain into power.
Join Joy Irungu on Night In as we take the brave step of sharing.
The road to 2022 is becoming tougher.
Nyuma ya wheelbarrow kuna economic model.
And trickier with each passing day.
Niliwaambia washushe chini bei ya mafuta.
Political aspirants in a dilemma whether to change allegiance or not.
How has Raila and the handshake made Jubilee lose focus?
You've seen Raila Odinga flying military choppers.
Our people have never been called to Uhuru Park to unite. They have always united out of their own volition.
Reduce your madness.
Kenyans are suffering.
That'd be fair to conclude.
I don't want your station to be sued. That Jubilee government has never been able to sponsor any successful project.
Every Monday at 9:30 p.m., Pundits Night brings you inclusive and candid conversations with the pundits. We say disability is not inability.
Our impairment are not disability. Disability is the barriers put across by the society.
Beyond the Limit gives a voice to those abled differently.
People with special needs can undertake a job, particularly that is customer service focused, as good, if not better, than people that are 100% able.
We bring you conversations of these great persons, round table conversations, and many more. Every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Tasty. 100 anything you want kabisa, like you do not need to add anything.
So the first thing you need as a beekeeper is a beehive.
Yes. Even though I know I won't read it as hard because when I'm getting the time.
You can handle it. But if you want us to reduce